Hey, dreamers, and welcome to Dreamers Unite, the talk show for dreamers. I am Sherri Pullum, of course, your host, and I am, as always, grateful that you have tuned in, joined in, communed in, sharing in this conversation. I am thrilled and honored to bring you this amazing thriver and survivor, Lorinda Hawkins Smith. So let me tell you a little bit more about Lorinda. She is an actress, a writer, and an artivist who says she's not just a domestic violence survivor, but as I said, she's a thriver. After surviving a marriage that nearly took her life, she was able to get her MBA while transitioning from homeless to housed. That's huge right there. Lorinda has used the trials of her life's journey to create a short play, Justice or Just Me, which she has performed for over 10 years and plans to develop it into a full-length play, as well as complete a book and a screenplay in order to use her creativity to give voice to an issue that is still so widely ignored. Lorinda, wow, welcome. I'm so honored to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
People end up going through a lot in this lifetime, and you certainly have had your share, and we're going to go into that, of challenging circumstances. Let's put it that way, to say the least. But you managed, as my mom used to say, you managed to turn your scars into stars.
Wow.
So let's dive into this challenge. And you being in a marriage that ended up abusive, and I'm sure you didn't go into it with your eyes wide open and thinking that's what's going to turn out to be. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to be in the situation that you were in.
Thank you for that. Abuse looks different. I had always heard about domestic violence being physical. I even had friends who were in those relationships and thought, if that were me, I wouldn't stay. One of my first relationships was abusive, or it started to go down that path physically, and I did leave. But when I went into this marriage, a lot happened in my life. I am an only child. And I lost my mother in 2000. And the way I lost her was, she literally died in my arms.
Oh.
And that was very difficult, tragic. But at the same time, she did suffer a lot. So I was very grateful that at least there was no more pain for her.
Yes.
And then shortly after that, my father became a missing person. And before he became a missing person, he was diagnosed with a mental illness later in life. But he was taking medication for it. But after my mother passed, he went off of it. And with that type of illness, it's not immediately apparent when somebody goes off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was off of it, he would get violent. He would get physical. And that was so not my father growing up. Not at all. But this illness made him have psychotic tendencies. And I was living in the house with him and my mother with my son at the time, who was 3. And I couldn't take the risk of staying there. And that's when I experienced homelessness for the first time. I kind of found out from my father's doctor, because of the patient-doctor confidentiality thing they have. So whenever I would call trying to look for advice of, he seems different, I would get in return, oh, well, you need to read up on bipolar disorder. You need to learn more. This is part of it. And then one day, he just said, actually, he's not my patient anymore because he refused to take his medication. And then I was like, whoa.
Wow, what a bombshell.
Yeah. And our lives are at risk because, yeah. So I just feel like lots of things need to change with mental health and all that. So, and I would come, even when I was staying at my friends, my neighbor's house, I would try to visit my father once in a while, even then. And then I got a call that his truck was there for a few days with the door open. And my neighbor went to the door and saw foreclosure notices on the door. And this is the house I grew up in. And this was a time when I was already struggling, trying to, it just felt like I was going from trauma to trauma, and I didn't
Yeah.
have time to really grieve my mother before the next trauma happened. And after a while, I just was tired. I just felt like, you know what? I just want to give, I wanted to be saved, you know, I wanted to be delivered from my situation. And I met my ex-husband, and he seemed the opposite of bad relationships that I had had in the past. I mean, he seemed calm, and he was white, still is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, has that changed?
Still is,
That was gonna be my next
right?
question.
And you know, pescatarian, very peaceful. He would meditate. He was Buddhist. It just, and he just seemed really stable and grounded and at peace. And I was just like, yeah, we clicked right away. And I just felt like, here's my power. Take it, take control. And so I just willingly gave him control because, you know, I'm tired. You make all the decisions. I became pregnant, and that was the answer. Well, let's get married. And it was like, oh, I was used to, what? You're pregnant, you know, get rid of it. You know, and here's this man saying, no, let's get married. And I was just like, huh? So it got to the point where I was dealing with the depression of trying to sell the house before it was foreclosed upon, dealing with the grief of my father being missing, dealing with, and being 9 months pregnant. And there was so much going on. And then when we finally got our house, I still didn't have time to grieve. I'm still getting the nursery ready, and I'm still washing clothes. I'm still cooking. I'm still doing all these things. And I just kept telling myself, well, this is my lot in life. If I just be this nice, submissive wife, things will be okay. Even though more and more my needs weren't being heard. And I just kept thinking, you know, I'm just being ungrateful. I have a roof over my house. I have this, I have my kids. But there were things I needed, like a break. I was breastfeeding, washing cloth diapers, you know, building, putting chairs together, putting cribs together, doing all these things. And it just got to a point where it got physical after a Christmas. We were only married for like 5 months. And that Christmas, my ex-husband didn't really celebrate Christmas. He had bad experiences growing up with Christmas. So I just thought, I'll save you from that. I will give you the most wonderful Christmas ever. So I bought tons of presents and it was my daughter's first Christmas, and I just really wanted everything to be great. The music was the type of music he would like, and I was up practically all night wrapping gifts, making sure everything was perfect. So when Christmas came, I was tired. I had a headache, and I just thought we would spend Christmas dinner over a family member's house, and that didn't happen. I was expected to cook, and that was difficult, but I thought, you know what, I will suck it up and do it. And I did. And then there was the criticism. It came to a boiling point. I think it was like 2 days after Christmas, a day or two after Christmas. And to not go into all the details, I found myself at one point face down, him on top of me, knee in my back, and his arm was around my neck, pulling upwards. And he had a 5th-degree black belt in martial arts, so he knew how to do holds. And he would say that he knows how to hurt without leaving marks. So yeah, so I couldn't breathe, I couldn't scream, and all I could do was hear my 5-month-old little girl in the other room crying, and I couldn't go to her. And I thought, so this is how I'm gonna die? And I heard a voice say, turn your head as far as you can to the right and bite as hard as you can. And I did, and that's what saved my life. And I realized that that voice that I heard was God, and the very voice that I had been ignoring all my life, thinking I knew better, thinking, oh, I'm being too sensitive. Oh, that's silly. Every time. And for that voice to want to save me, even though I pretty much turned my back on it, like even threw away my mother's Bible when I was cleaning out stuff. Yeah, I just felt like, well, that's the type of love that, yeah, I need. And I made up my mind to follow Christ to the best of my ability from that point on, and to listen to that voice to the best of my ability after that.
I get the sense that it first was verbal, emotional abuse. First, yes?
Yes.
And then it gradual, I mean, in 5 months is such a short period of time to be married.
Right.
And you dated for how long?
We dated for about a year.
Okay. So in that time, he didn't present himself as, or was he kind of emotionally, I guess I'm trying to ask, when did you see sort of the first sign and you ignored that little voice inside of you that said, red flag, which, you know, so many of us have been guilty of.
Very good questions. There were red flags. But I thought I would convince myself out of them. Oh, you're being too silly. Oh, you're overreacting. You're being too sensitive. And then I would soon hear that from him. So that was confirming that voice. Oh, and you believe that? Oh, and so the gaslighting started. But of course, at the beginning, you know, this is the honeymoon period. He's trying to woo me, you know, he's saying all the right things and doing all the right things. But there were signs that he was very controlling. But I had already convinced myself that's what I need, because I'm out of control here. You know, my life is going, and basically I put all my faith in him. And that was the biggest mistake.
That's where the gaslighting comes in.
Yeah, and see, it was very subtle then. But then it got just blatant gaslighting as the relationship, as he saw that he got me, you know. It's like the grooming period, I hate to say. But yeah, when he saw that I wasn't going anywhere, I mean, then it was just like, oh, you're crazy, or oh, that's silly, or yeah. And then you're isolated. I didn't have time to see my friends or go see them. And if I wanted a break like that, to just go somewhere, I was made to feel like I was a bad mother. You know, I would encourage him, even though I was breastfeeding our daughter, you know, I would still express milk, freeze it, and it was frozen so that he could feed her too in the bottle. But when he would try and she would get a little fussy, he would just give up and just be like, see, what is she, a burden to you? And that just would grieve my spirit. You know, it's like, what? This is my heart, you know, my child. But yeah, if I would ask for things like that, I really was made to feel like I was ungrateful and irresponsible, all these things, and I just internalized all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the day, and I thank you for reliving it with us, because it's not just a story.
Right.
It's something that happened to you that is, um, could be part of a trigger too, as you're sharing. And I appreciate your courage in sharing the story. So I just wanted to revisit briefly
Mhm.
after, he had you in this chokehold, which obviously so many of us have this new sensitivity to, especially with, George Floyd. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Just
so
cry.
we visually can really see it's
Yeah.
not just a movie. It's not
Right.
something that's a life
Yeah.
that was taken, and
Yeah.
yours could have been the same way. So we could understand how your reaction would be, I've got to survive. And, like you said, turning to the right and biting.
Yeah.
So what happened when you bit him?
He let go, and I had such a mixture of emotions. I was livid that this man tried to kill me, livid. I, I just hurt, betrayed, confused. Just, you're supposed to love me. I don't understand. I, but so at that time, it was, I wanted to make him pay.
Mm.
I should have just, looking back, I mean, what do you do? I could have left, but I have to come back at some
Did you
point.
call
My
the
daughter's
police?
there.
Did you call the
Yeah,
police?
I called the police.
And tell me about the
And now we're
experience with the
understanding,
police.
yeah. Well, it's coming out more and more what Black people's experience is by calling the police. And here I, a Black woman, am calling the police on a white man.
That's right. Who
Yeah.
you just bit to
Yes.
leave marks on his body,
And that's not
and
even
none probably on yours.
right. He had self-defense marks from me scratching, trying to make him go away even before the bite. So I called, I'm still freaked out. I'm just freaked out. And the lady on the other end told me if I felt threatened to just leave the house and wait outside. So when I announced so foolishly that I was going to call the police, he then was like, well, then, and you tell him the truth. You tell him what happened, and, that you started it. You started it. I went outside, and when I was waiting outside, that the cloud of confusion that I was feeling kind of lifted a little bit. So I saw the police hiding in the bushes, not wanting to advance until they were sure which unit it was. So I saw them, and then I'm starting to think about what just happened, and he comes out, because all the while he was not letting me go near my daughter. Every time I would try to go, he would physically push me to make me go away. So when he came out holding our daughter, I looked at him in the light, and I saw the self-defense marks, the scratches. And I was literally, Sherri, I was literally about to apologize to him and try to do anything I could to make it right. And when I was it was like slow motion. As I'm about to turn to him and apologize, he's waving the cops over. waving the police over. But all of a sudden now I'm thinking, I just snitched. I just told on a man who has lethal weapon hands that can be looked at as he could go to jail. What did I just do? That's the father of my child. What am I doing? So as I'm separated, being questioned, I said, well, you know what? I started it, and they were trying to say, well, did he kick you? Did he do this? And they were very specific. And I'm a truth teller. So I just was like, well, it wasn't a kick. He had holds. And I didn't want to say too much because I didn't want to.
You're still trying to protect him.
Yes.
Yes. I understand.
So I did say, though, but at one point he was choking me. And, but they said, but did he do this? Did he do that? And I'm like, I don't remember. It happened so fast and I'm still in it. I don't have time to try to unpack what really happened. All I know is that's why I called you, is because at one point he was choking me. So then the two male officers, two white, I think one might have been Latino, but they spoke to each other. And then next thing I know, I'm being handcuffed. And and I was shocked. I said, what's going on? And they said, you're under arrest for spousal abuse, domestic violence. I just was like, what? Nice. They said, so he had all the protection.
Yeah. And he had the privilege.
Yes.
And he had the privilege.
Yes.
When you were arrested, how long did you stay in jail?
Because it was a holiday weekend, it felt like I stayed longer than normal. What is normal?
Listen, an hour is longer than 10 minutes. Right? When you're the one being assaulted and you end up with the handcuffs.
Yes.
And in jail, 2 minutes is too long.
Right. And
so you stayed there for how long?
About 3 days or 4 days.
Wow.
For my arraignment. And all the while my breasts are engorged.
Oh, because the baby was so little.
Yes, 5 months old. I was still breastfeeding, but his sister came to visit me, and when she came to visit me, she brought my breast pump. And I was just so happy to be able to feed my daughter, and I missed my daughter so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only reason they came, was because the formula wasn't agreeing with the baby. So they convinced the jail people to do something that they could be sued for, apparently. I found out later.
When you went to court, what ended up happening? What did you were you able to get your record clean? Was he ever charged with anything? Were you ever able to really be vindicated,
That's the word.
Was it that ever?
Okay. So the day of arraignment, I still was thinking, even though he didn't visit me, I still have a chance to make this work. And the lawyer told me, she said, ma'am, so I talked to the judge and they want to give you, what was it? It felt like 3 to 5 years, but I would ultimately probably just do 1 with good behavior.
I know it had to be surreal.
Yeah, so then she let me know. She said, we have his testimony that said it was all you. We have the pictures of his injuries. And I'm just like, he has a 5th degree black belt in martial arts. Was I supposed to just let him kill me? And she asked me, look, what do you want to do? Because if you want to fight it, you're going to jail to wait for the court date. Or, are you going to take the deal? So I told her I needed to go, and I needed a moment. I needed to think. And then I heard the voice. The voice said, divorce?
Divorce.
And then I made up in my heart and mind right there, Yes, divorce.
And
And
so,
the next thing I heard was community service. And I got it. It was a plea deal.
mm,
She explained it to me
mm,
that with this plea of no contest, it could not be used against me in any future lawsuits. That's what she said. And then when I kept my promise to God to go through with the divorce, he kept his promise, my ex-husband, to sue me for sole, physical, and legal custody of our little girl. And he won because of
wow.
that conviction. Yeah.
Have you forgiven your husband, and have you forgiven yourself?
Very good questions. Very good questions. Oh my goodness. Yes, I believe I have forgiven my husband. And I believe I have been able to do that not by my power alone.
Mm-hmm.
It literally took the power of God to help me do that,
Oh, yeah.
because I all day would be like, oh yeah, I forgive him. I forgive him. You know, you say these things,
Mm-hmm.
but then every time I would hear his name or the thought of him, my stomach would do a thing. And you can't control that.
Mm-mm.
That's my
Mm-mm.
body's doing a thing. And I
Mm-mm.
know that there's so many illnesses and diseases that can be brought about by just carrying that kind of bitterness. And so I just prayed and just asked God to help me get rid of that.
Yeah, and the other thing about forgiveness, it's really for, the benefit of us, because we will continue to suffer and we will continue to be in pain every time you hear his name, every time you call his, or talk about him, every time you think about the story or what you lived, your experience. If you didn't have that forgiveness, and really, I believe too that only God can give us that peace that surpasses all understanding, because you can't, you, or at least this is what I believe, especially when you hear like what happened to you, and people again with such heinous crimes, you hear of mothers forgiving the murderer or dads of their children or spouses, or and you think to yourself, how could they do it? And you know that it has to be come from someplace so much greater than our own humanness.
I want to just quickly say,
Yeah.
there's a life scripture for me, and it's the one that says, "She who was forgiven much loves much." Because yeah, that he would save me physically and spiritually when literally I was not listening to him at all, not trying to do it his way at all, following this other man. My ex-husband was my little god, and yeah.
Well, you did what you knew at the time, and that's what we do. We do, and you had, circumstances beyond your control. So, and that's why I asked the question about you forgiving yourself, because
Oh,
oftentimes we blame, like you said, maybe if I had done this differently or that differently, or if I had, maybe I would still have my child, or maybe if I had just done this or that. And that's why I ask, have you forgiven yourself?
I didn't answer that. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. My voice is going up, but I mean, it's a process, and
Yes,
I
it
feel
is.
like ultimately I've forgiven myself, but I still think there are those times where I'm like,
Of
still
course.
going through it today, if only, but I can't do the if only. But um, so there was that initial place where I felt, completely defeated, where my child, I had lost all custody, and there was that process of just sitting in the grief and not trying to escape it in any way, like not trying to eat it away, not trying to shop it away, go shopping, or no distractions, to just humble myself and just sit in it and just listen to that beautiful voice that I had ignored and stopped listening to so long ago. But God and his mercy. And I tell you, Sherri, I mean, there were times when I was just curled up in this fetal position, just crying on the carpet, where I literally felt the sensation of arms around me.
That's beautiful.
It was amazing. And yeah, so it's an ongoing process. It's daily. He who has begun a good work in you shall complete it till the day of Christ. But yeah, but I just feel like when those feelings come up, I'm quick to recognize them for what they are,
Mhm.
realize that they don't belong anywhere in this space. But I see you, but I counter it. I counter it with the truth of the situation, the truth of now. And he's a God of restoration, and nothing's impossible for him. So yeah, why am I sweating it? So it's like, just do what I'm called to do.
And speaking of doing what you're called to do, I want to transition into your play, your
Okay.
short play. And how did that come about? I mean, obviously, you're telling your story and your journey, and you said it's a 10-minute play. You're looking to develop it as a full play.
So when I had lost everything and was in the shelters in Skid Row, and I became aware of these comedy tragedy masks around me. And I just was like, Lord, you cannot really be telling me to get into acting now. Here in Skid Row. I'm like, I don't have an agent. I don't have my pictures and resumes. What are you telling me? But what I did is I humbled myself and got involved in theater in Skid Row. And theater in Skid Row is social justice bent. There's a big social justice bent in theater in Skid Row. And that just was amazing for me. I mean, they wanted to hear me and they gave me the opportunity. I asked, I said, can I write a monologue? Can I write my own monologue? And this one theater group was like, sure. And that's where it started. And that's where this 10-minute Justice or Just Me piece started. And then when I told it, shared it, so many people, that was their story too. And then I just would get asked to share it with groups, share it at events, just perform this monologue. And then I just realized, yeah, this is bigger than just my story. So I took it upon myself. I feel it's very important to give voice to the voiceless. And this is a subject matter that nobody wants to talk about. And it's very difficult. I don't blame them for not wanting to talk about it. But I feel like art is a way to broach the conversation, talk about it in a new way, in a different way. And so when I would be invited to groups to share my story and perform it, I would get a lot of feedback. And a lot of it was, you need to finish it. You need to complete this. This is so many people's stories. This is mine. I got thank you letters. And then it was like, wow. But again, Sherri, 10 years. And I feel like it took as long as it had to take, because it feels like I am still in it, because when you have kids with the person, you still are. So I feel like I'm finally at the point where I can just finish it, to again, just revisit that place in my life. And I don't want it to be all tragedy. I want there to be comedy. I want there to be singing. Because I'm goofy like that. And, and I want it to be entertaining.
Yeah, and even in our darkest moments, and you know that Zoe and I, we've talked about this before. We have this play Ashes, which centers around domestic violence and sexual assault, but ultimately a journey to self-love. And one of the things that I said to her, because she wrote the play, and when I came on board, one of the things I said to her is that literally we just can't beat people over the head with every single pain, because life, as painful as it is, there is humor in it.
Yes.
There's also joy in some of the pain that we went through. There's also celebration. there's, those lessons. I was saying to someone the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I think I talked about it too on the show, where she said, birthing something, giving birth is that contraction. If there's joy and there's pain in it, right? There's that joy in it, and there's the pain, the joy of bringing this new life, whatever that may be, into the world. So
That's
yes, how can we find out more about the play? And if someone wanted to get involved in helping, because this is Dreamers Unite after all, a place where we also network and we share um, for a cause and a purpose. So how can someone get involved?
Yes, definitely. I do have my website. It's LorindaHawkinsSmith.com. There's more information there. I do have a Facebook fan page, Lorinda Hawkins Smith.
Your story is profound and poignant, and I appreciate you. It's hard to tell a story like yours in terms of all that you've gone through. And
But if my story can help at least one person, then it's not in vain, and that gives me great comfort. So thank you for allowing me to share.
what can you offer to someone that may be going through a toxic situation right now? Because this is COVID-19. We know that sexual violence and sexual assault, we know that it's increased. We're sheltered in with maybe people that are not the best people to be around, or we're sheltered in with our abuser, whether it's emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. What can you offer from your journey that may help someone else?
I would say definitely don't give up. Don't give up, knowing that there are brighter days ahead. If you are able, write your thoughts, write your feelings, write a plan of escape. Write, and keep it in a safe place. What is safe that you would know? Forgive yourself.
Mm.
Forgive yourself, and try to remember back to when you were little, what you wanted to be, what you wanted to do, and what you were good at. Because we all have plans and purposes in our lives, and sometimes that gets lost. It gets lost in the distractions of life, lost in how other people see us. It's so easy for it to get lost, but I would encourage you to explore that with yourself.
That, I think I'm gonna take that, and I'm just going to open my hands as an offering to someone who may need it. I'm just going to open my hands. Often on this show, I catch nuggets and I throw them for our viewers to catch. But this is really an offering, um, and of love and of encouragement.
Yes.
And listen, even if you're not being abused or you're not in an abusive situation, right now, these are some tough times out here.
Yeah.
It's hard. We all need that offering that Lorinda just so poignantly shared, is be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Be gentle. Go back to that little child. Embrace you. Embrace you. And I think I've said it before, it does come down, Lorinda, to us loving ourselves enough to get out, enough to live our dreams, enough to be, in our own authentic bodies and in our authentic selves. It just takes us loving who we are. And that sometimes that's a whole nother show
Yes.
for sure, because it is so difficult to do that. It is hard. Um,
And it's really basically saying your life matters.
your life matters.
Yours.
Here's another offering. I'm just going to open my hands up. Your life matters. There you go. Sharing it with you. Before we close, you have a poem that was just recently published. Yes, on Dreamers Unite. Yes to the poem. Yes to dreams coming true. Yes to the manifestation becoming a reality. Yes, yes, yes. So on this show, we also have talent showcases. We share information, but we also share our gifts.
It is to showcase Black lives, because Black lives matter.
Black Lives Matter. Yes, Black Lives Matter. Take it away, air. Take it away, Lorinda. Air.
Air is H2O? No. Air is the breath of life, life to give, not yours to take. Air is fresh, air is free. Air is between you and me. Air. I need air. You need air. We need air. Air to breathe, air to live. Give me some air. Air on the side of air. Too much is given, much is required. This is the air I breathe. Give me some air. Take flight, take breath, take your own, don't take mine. H2O, no. Help me to overcome. Air can be rare if you can't pay the fare. Just one glare. Where is the air? Where? There? With just a pair of, with just a tear of, the thought I can't bear of, who will care of? Will they dare care my need for air? Is it fair? Where is the air? Don't just stare, don't just glare, give me air. Sell your wares in the lion's lair to overcome with my need for air to help me breathe. Help me breathe. Help me to overcome. H2O, no. Help me to live, or leave me alone. Help me to breathe, or leave me to die. Hear my cries, hear my pleas. Have to own up to the gifts we bear. The gift to breathe, the gift to live, the gift to hear, the gift to see. Can you hear me breathe? Can you see me choke? Can you care for the air I need? H2O, no. Not if the air you breathe is in my vicinity. Not if your need to breathe stops my divinity. Air if you must, air if you need. Air on the side of air. Air you can see, air you can touch. To some it matters, to others not much. Air to live, air to move. It is in you I live and move and have my being. My spirit, my breath, my air. Breath of life, I give it back to you. Giver of life, giver of breath. It is yours to take, it is yours to give. The air I breathe is just for a moment. For what is man but a vapor? Here today and tomorrow not. But it is you who value my worth. It is you who wants me to take up air. It is you who value my breath. To take up space, to make space. Space is made, space is taken, space is given. Take up the space, take up the air. It was bought with a price and the price wasn't fair. Take up the space, take up the air. You were bought for a price and the price wasn't fair. My breath belongs to me alone. Who are you to take what I own?
Powerful. Ashe, powerful. Thank you.
Sherri.
Thank you.
This was a delight.
This was beyond a delight. And I hope that our viewers have taken away again what I said in the beginning of this conversation. Look at your light. And that poem, powerful and needed right now in this moment. Air. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, viewers, that is it here today with Lorinda and myself on Dreamers Unite. Again, if you haven't subscribed, I say it again, I don't know what in the world you're waiting for. Hit the subscribe button, hit the blue bell for more great content. Let me know if you'd like to come on and be a guest. You want to share your dream. We want to talk it out, work it out, share it out. This is what this channel is for. It's a process to get to where we want to be. It's a process, a dream, achieving and recreating and creating again is a process. Be gentle. And most of all, love yourself. Because now is the time for us to create the world that we wish to see. See you again next time.